Hey, Kevin Martin, your UT admissions guy. I'm filming this video today to comment on the recent fall 2024 transfer to UT Austin admission cycle. So I don't usually make videos for the transfer cycle because it's kind of the same every year. Not much really changes. But this year was a bit of a roller coaster, I think, for the majority, or definitely many thousands of applicants who applied for UT. So just as a little bit of a recap, I joined a GroupMe chat, which is like where all the anxious people who are waiting for their UT decision congregate, and was hanging out there, and I realized pretty quickly that the mood of the discussion was quite different than other group chats I've joined in the past, and that's because I was there right around June 15th, and then like 16th came, 17th came, 18th, 19th, 20th, and there were many students who had still not heard back their decisions, including many of my clients. And so that's when I picked up on that something exceptional might be happening this cycle. So the first thing is that it seems like UT maybe did receive a record number of transfer applications this year. If you look at the data, and I've shared this on some different blog posts, but usually the transfer numbers are pretty stable or static, flat from year to year. Maybe 7,000, maybe 8,000, maybe I think 8,500 was the highest confirmed number of fall transfer applicants for around 2,500 to 3,000 admissions offers, and then maybe something like 2/3 of those students will eventually enroll. But one initial indicator that there were many more applicants received was that there were a lot of delays with transcripts, items received, even for students that were sending them like in mid-February, and then again whenever students had to update with their spring grades. For those who had fewer than 24 hours, there were issues with processing, like students sending them mid-May, and then the documents still not uploading or being registered even as like late as early June, which seemed very uncharacteristic. There were a few students that called the admissions office who did confirm that there were not just like normal delays that happen with every cycle, but significant delays. One student reported, and I heard multiple students say this, that like admissions people themselves, and this is pretty rare for this to happen, but they said that there was like maybe a 15 to 20% increase in application numbers, which gives me reason to believe that, yeah, maybe this was legitimately a record year, where maybe there were 10,000 applicants that were received. We don't know that data, and we may not ever know that data, but it wouldn't surprise me. Whereas the freshman numbers really have been going up like a sort of like a linear line for like the last 15 years. As I mentioned, transfers have been stable. So the other thing too is UT and many institutions around the country are also just reducing staff. So I think there's just fewer people that are manually doing some of the processing, which happens with a lot of the transcripts. Have to usually be done by hand or verified by hand. And so if you have more apps and fewer people, that means a lot more complications. And so in terms of the admissions outcomes, that GroupMe Reddit chat, they collected a spreadsheet of like a few hundred different students that reported their admissions outcomes. Most of them looked pretty reliable. I had seen early reports of students with like a 3.6 claiming to have gained admission to computer science. If anyone has like a verifiable, legitimate, non-photoshopped, misrepresentative example of a student getting into ECE or computer science with like a 3.6 or lower, I would be extremely curious to see, because at least for computer science, the admissions rate has got to be in like the low single digits. I had two clients with 4.0s who had really strong resumes, great curriculum, did not get in. CS is just super hard. So if anyone didn't get into CS and were disappointed, well, you're in a large company of people. I also saw in that spreadsheet and received anecdotally students with 4.0s who did get denied to non-STEM majors like liberal arts or communications. And so for future applicants who are watching this video, it's not to scare you, but it's just to suggest that transfer admission has definitely gotten more competitive since COVID, and just to be aware of that competition landscape, that a 4.0 does not guarantee admission to any of the majors. So just as a bit of an FYI. There were also still plenty of students that got in with maybe a slightly below average GPA. I think the admitted UT transfer GPA is around a 3.75 for the whole university. That's of course going to be higher for majors like engineering or business, computer science. But there were definitely students with 3.5, 3.6 that got into economics or liberal arts or communications or education, even some reports of a 3.8 or so getting into business. So business is tough, but it's not insurmountable in the way that computer science often feels like. I had a student get into electrical computer engineering, which was also reassuring. So like students do get into these spaces, it's just very, very, very hard. So yeah. Another thing is just the I have to say, transfers, GroupMe, like they did y'all dirty for real. Like, okay, so UT every year has in like on their website, it'll say, okay, the deadline is March 1st, deadline, and it'll say your decision will be out by June 15th. Well, like I mentioned, like the weekend rolled around, most of the decisions still hadn't come out. There were some students that were admitted or rejected in early June, or even like I think maybe like May 29, May 30, small batches of students. But then what UT did, instead of just like emailing all of the transfer applicants to be like, hey, by the way, like here's what's going on. We have like a record number of apps, like we're behind on processing, like we're behind on review, we're reviewing the students who submitted their spring grades, whatever. They just like didn't do anything. Like no updates on social media, no updates on X, nothing on Instagram, nothing. Just no communication. And then they changed their website to say decisions will be released mid to late June. Just like real sly, like a real ghost. And I think I don't know. I want to say I was the one that caught it, but I was checking because GroupMe kids were freaking out, and I looked and I was like, "And y'all have seen this? Like this is crazy." Screenshot it. I'm like, "This is not normal. This has never happened before." There had been times in the transfer cycle where like maybe some students heard back like June 16, 17, or for like fine arts or architecture or some of these other kind of like niche cases, like maybe students did hear back a little bit later, but not where it was like the majority of students were literally hearing back the 3rd and 4th week of June. I even had one client heard back I think like June 30th. So that was not cool. If you're upset about that, you have every reason to believe, or every reason to be validated in that feeling. And I'm sorry that happened. I just like it's really super frustrating to be told that you're already waiting for like at least 3 months after March 1st, and like you still have to wait, and it's unclear. And then like some students are hearing back and others aren't, and it's just like this completely unnecessary anxiety and a total preventable institutional own goal. It's like just turn around, kick the ball in the net. It's like you don't have to do that. So it sucks. I'm sorry that happened. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen again next year. No idea. So any transfers watching this, just understand that things can change and you may have no idea why. Speaking of things that change, there's another kind of weird thing. There's this like glitch that keeps happening. My status has been updated this year, and I think also this past year for the freshman fall 2024 applicants, where they've just kind of completely redid the My Status portal. It seems honestly like less user-friendly and less user experience clear than the previous My Status. It's like a little more minimal, it's sleeker, but like the actual communication on My Status, like when it triggers whether your app is in review or if it's complete or if you have a document missing, there were a lot of issues there, like legitimate mistakes being made, students sending in their transcripts, like My Status reporting that the transcript was received, but then like the application not being under review and then the application being canceled. I don't know. Another weird thing, there's this big giant mystery where some students, and at first I thought it was like kind of nonsense. I was like, all right, y'all, I just need to like chill out with all this. But there's this whatio/IRS page, and what was happening with at least some students, they're like these financial aid things or these enrollment portals would change prior to getting their admissions result, and it would be like 1 or 2 or 3 days before whatio or IRS would show up as like this weird glitchy error, and then the student would get in. But I sent an email with the person that was managing the Reddit spreadsheet of like all the students that were reporting their outcomes, and I said, look, here's what you need to do to figure out what this IRS whatio thing means. So you have to do 4 things. First thing is you have to find anyone that remembers getting RS whatio. Okay, and if you got RS whatio and you gained admission, cool. But you also need to find if there were RIS people whatio that did not gain admission. Well, then that would invalidate the hypothesis, right? Because then that would suggest that okay, maybe there is no correlation there. Also, the other 2 things you would have to find if students gained admission without the RIS whatio thing, right? Because then it'd be like twisting the variables. Or were there students that, okay, like did not get admission that did not get IRS, right? Like, so that's kind of like the other pool. So I don't know if anyone's watching this in the future and the same thing happens for spring 2025 or fall 2025, like this would be like the science experiment to run. So if you want to do a spreadsheet again, then like just ask people, hey, like, did you get this indication or not? So I still don't know what it means. Like, I don't know. Like, I just wish like things worked correctly. I don't know. It's great for my search engine optimization, I guess. Another weird thing that happened, I had a few students that were on the quarter system. So these are usually like West Coast schools, like California system, maybe Washington, Seattle, Stanford, like these kinds of schools are on the quarter system. And the classes are all weird. So it's like your spring quarter finishes like in, I don't know, like end of February or something, and then you have like another quarter that like begins and ends after March 1st, but like before like June 15th, supposedly, when the decisions are supposed to come out. And so those students that had to update with their quarter transcript also confronted a lot of issues. And I think that there are even some students that have actually not received an admissions decision yet because they're at an institution that's on this quarter system. So if that's anyone out there, anyone in the future on the quarter system, just like FYI, it's probably going to be weird, and just, I don't know, make some phone calls, see what happens. Not sure. Okay, final thing, transfers. So people are asking me about appeals. I don't know, you can try it. I've written blog posts about appeals. I argue that it is akin and equal to a lottery. If you're applying for one of these really highly competitive majors like computer science or business, highly unlikely you're going to get it on appeal. The other thing too is like one consequence of UT releasing decisions so late is like people are understandably freaking out about like course registration and finding an apartment and disengaging from their present institution. That's all real, and that's not fun, and you just will confront those same issues even if you have a successful appeal. So UT might give you, oh, you're in like end of July maybe, or beginning of August. Well, that's a super tight turnaround between like paying tuition at your current institution and then registering for classes at UT, and becomes like a big giant mess. And so getting it on appeal is highly unlikely. It's highly completely unpredictable, totally inconsistent. It has nothing to do with what you write in the appeals letter itself, and everything to do with UT maybe filling last minute spaces, but I'm not even sure if there are anything available in transfers like that. So you can appeal if you want. Don't hold your breath. Continue with your plans to continue your studies at your present institution. Last thing is, students are asking me about trying again. So yes, if you want to try for spring 2025, that's great. You have to apply by September 1st. It's a totally different applicant pool. A common question is spring more competitive than fall? And like, I can't really answer that. It's more like they're just different. They're different application pools. Spring only allows for college of liberal arts, education, natural sciences, social work. Those are the only majors that are eligible. Cannot apply for computer science or I think neuroscience. So it's limited in what majors you can choose from. There's only about 1,000 students, I think, that try for spring each year. Some years spring is very easy, where like lots of students get in. Other years it is very difficult, where almost nobody gets in, and that just has to do with the spaces available. So I think spring is neither like more or less predictably difficult, but it's just a lot less consistent than say the fall semester. But some students do get on a second or third or fourth attempt. Previous application attempts have no bearing on future ones, and so yeah, you can just try again with better grades, maybe take some summer school. You can try with the same essay if you want. Maybe you just need to get a better reviewer on a happier day or something. I don't know. But at some point, though, you kind of have to decide whether it's worth it to keep trying, especially if you're at a four-year university. There will be kind of a ticking clock where UT sort of says vaguely, like, if you have more than 60 hours, maybe we don't prioritize you. There's a lot of ambiguity around that, but I think for sure if you have more than 90 hours and you're at a four-year university where you can receive a bachelor's degree, then yeah, that's kind of like a hard cutoff. So if you're in like your junior year, senior year, just finish your degree at your current four-year institution. Look to UT for graduate school. Graduate school admissions is also just like way less intense. Like I don't know if like how many undergrads or prospective like graduate students are looking at this, but grad school tends to be a lot more chill, a lot less hardcore, especially if you're going for these like 2-year terminal master's degrees in engineering or computer science, or like these MBAs or these like 1-year business degrees. Way less intense. So if you have a 3.8, 3.9 at your current institution and you want to do a STEM or business graduate degree at UT, those pathways are way more predictable, way more accessible than transfer, honestly. So like if UT has closed the door on you 1 or 2 or 3 times, like don't be super discouraged or disheartened about that. Just finish up as best you can at your current institution. Look for UT for graduate school. So I think that's all that I have to say. I'm trying to think if there was any other questions to cover. Probably not. I don't think CAP makes any difference. I don't think CAP really gives you an advantage to like business or computer science. I still don't believe that that gives you any advantage, even though it's kind of like you apply directly through My Status. It's still just like the same pool of transfer students. It's like also a super common FAQ. Also doesn't matter if you're at a community college or four-year university. So I always like to clear up those misconceptions. Yes, please send me an email. That's the best way to contact me. I don't usually check my Reddit messages, and I don't read YouTube comments just because like YouTube. Email me, kevin@texadmissions.com if you have any questions. I am taking on spring 2025 transfers now, and I will take fall 2025 transfers starting over winter break. So after you receive your fall grades, reach out to me, and we can see if we're a good fit and talk about how I can help maximize your admissions chances.